Quilling is an art form where you use strips of paper that you roll and then glue into shapes. There's a lot of variety that you can do with the same strips of paper. I'm using strips of paper that are 1/4 inch by 11 inches. I just cut a regular off a sheet of paper into strips. There are special quilling tools that you can use for your rolling. Just for simplicity, I'm using a toothpick. To start your basic quill, or to coil, excuse me, what you can do is take your paper, start it around your toothpick, and then just roll it. Now you might find it's more comfortable to roll it towards you. You might find this more comfortable roll away from you. Whichever direction you like is the direction you want to do, but just go ahead and roll your strip of paper around the toothpick. Eventually at some point, like mine, you can see it's going to get a little bit messy. It's not coiling up very tightly, and so if that's the case, just go ahead and pull your toothpick out. You can see how it's a little bit uneven there. What I'm going to do is hold it with my fingers and then just wrap the rest around. I'm holding that center portion stable and I'm wrapping the tail of my paper around and pulling as I go. So I have a nice tight coil. Now, depending on what size you want, that'll decide where you end up gluing it. If I want a small tight coil like that, I would just finish it, put some glue on the end and do that. If I wanted something that was a little bigger, I might leave a longer tail, put the glue there, and then attach it and then let it uncoil. If I wanted a really loose coil, I would leave an even longer tail, put my glue here, put it on like that, and then let it uncoil even wider. I think I'm gonna go for a more medium-sized coil, so I'm gonna just put a little bit of glue. I just have a bit of scratch paper here so I won't get glue on my surface that I'm working on. I'm gonna put the tail, attach it onto my little coil that I've made, and I like to hold it with my fingers just for a few seconds just to help that glue set, because this is what I want to hold together. Then once it's set, you can see it sort of start to uncoil on its own. If I need it to uncoil a little larger to fill that, what I like to do is just sort of open that up a little bit by sort of moving that around until I get kind of a more even distribution of my coils. And there you go. That's how you make your shape. So depending on how tight you want your coil to be, you can make it very tight, you can make it loose. Now some other variations you could do with your colors. I was playing around with this. If you want to take 2 sheets of different colors, let's use some really contrasting colors so you'll be able to see the difference very well. So put a long portion with a short portion. Let's do the same with these just so we can compare how they'll come out. The reason I didn't cut them in half exactly was because I noticed that when you coil it up, the inner coils are a lot smaller, and so they use less paper. And so if you cut your strip in half, you're going to end up with a really large number of coils in the center because those coils are so much smaller, and then just a couple around the outside. By doing it this other way, where you have one coil or one strip of paper that's short and a longer segment, you can actually have almost the same amount of coils around. So let's go ahead and do another one, and let's see how it looks with the two-tone. What I like about the coiling, or doing the quilling, is that you are just using paper and glue. It's a really simple craft, and you can just be experimental, because if this doesn't look nice, what have I really lost? A few seconds of my time and a strip of paper. Not a big deal. All right, I have it, as I said, it's a little uneven there. I'm gonna squeeze with my fingers, get that coil nice and even. Let's add a little bit of glue onto that. And here, you saw how small that little blue strip was as compared to the length of the pink, but because the inner coils are so much smaller, you can see when we open it up, The blue is kind of stuck. You can see it really, there we go. There we go. You can see how the blue and the pink are both visible there. And the blue doesn't look, even though it was so much smaller, it looks almost about the same as the pink because of how the pink was such a longer segment. Let's do another. I think if you wanted to be more precise with exactly the size of your coils, you could measure out to a certain length, like you could put a mark on your scratch sheet to figure out exactly how long you want it to be. For myself, I'm a little okay with it being a little bit uneven here and there, but it's just fun to see how these things were going to come out. This one I left a little less tail, so I think it will be a little tighter than the other, or a little smaller than the other, but let's find out. So we got letting the glue set for a moment, and then open it up and let it uncoil. There we go. So now we have those, so those are two opposite, where we had a short blue segment in the center of the first and a short pink segment in the center of the other. So once you've created a bunch of coils, you might have tight coils, you might have loose coils, you might have some kind of medium coils. You can use your coils just as they are in these spirals to decorate like cards or make pictures. They're very attractive. You can do lots of fun things. You can blend your colors to make designs. However, you might also want to experiment with different shapes. I'm going to show you how to fold your coils and make different shapes that you can use as a building block for other designs. So let's just grab one. One of the more common shapes that you use is the teardrop. The easy way to do it is sort of pull the center of the coil a little bit off to the side, and then take the rest of it, take the rest of it and sort of stretch that out, and then just give it a little squeeze. You can see how it sort of naturally, instead of staying in the center portion, it kind of moves to the side. And to me, it almost looks like a nautilus shell. It just has a really beautiful shape. So that's your basic teardrop. Now, let's do another one though, and let's give it a variation. Let's take this one. So this, we're gonna make another teardrop. Fold that, it moves to the side, right? And so we have that thing that looks like a nautilus shell again. You can also give it a little bit of a tilt. And now you have the teardrop that kind of has a little tilt to it. To me, it looks a little bit more like a paisley. So again, standard teardrop, teardrop with a little bit of a tilt. You can also do a shape called the Marquis. In this one, you start out again, you do your teardrop on one side, your basic teardrop, but then sort of move this back over from the edge to the middle and crease the other side as well. To me, the Marquis almost looks like an eye. So we have that one. Let's do another variation on that one, where we do the Marquis, so squeeze and squeeze. We have our Marquis, but let's also add in a tilt. To me, this looks a little like the tilde that you put on top of the letter N on the enye. Boop. Another fun design that you can make, just a simple little twist that you put onto your standard coil shape, is we're going to make another Marquis. So by doing that, we're going to squeeze on one side, squeeze on the other side, and sort of open it up a little again so we can see into there, right? And there is our Marquis. But now turn it 90 degrees and give it another bend and another bend. By the time we're done with it, we should end up with pretty much with a square. And you can see how inside the square kind of tilts to the side, and it's a really beautiful effect. I kind of think it looks a little, I know it's like a square, but it makes me think a little bit of like roses for some reason, like how rose petals turn, but you have that beautiful center section. You can see how easy it is to transform your regular circular coils into different shapes. And then once you have those, you can put them together into different designs. Now let's say you want some filler shapes. Like let's say I had glued this down and I had made a little flower and I wanted to have a stem coming off of it. I could cut a section of paper and then just have it hanging out, but let's do a little fancy. If I give my paper a fold and then glue my paper down, instead of folding it, instead of gluing it right along the fold so that it was a flat sheet of paper, if I put the glue here and then stretch the paper out a bit that way, I create a natural gap. And it creates that sort of leaf shape. And so if I want to do something like that, I could have a leaf coming out. Now that particular leaf is a little on the big side. I might want to go a bit smaller, but you can see the idea. Instead, I might want to use a smaller leaf like that, just coming out of my flower. Oops. And before I glued it, and then I would, once I'm happy with my design, I could glue it down onto a sheet of paper or cardstock. There are so many other designs that you can make for your quilling. One other design I wanted to show you was a scroll. So a scroll is basically a way of using your one strip to put two different coils on it. So we're going to start out by coiling. We're going to go to about halfway. I'm going to put a little bit of glue down. I'm going to let it uncoil a little bit because I don't want it totally tight, but I do want a relatively tighter coil. So it's not as tight as my tight coil, but it has a little bit of breathing room in there, but still smaller than the standard. Now what I'm going to do is, depending on which direction I want it to be, if I wanted to C-scroll, I would have it coil to that way and have a second one looking at it, but I want to go more of a traditional scroll where it goes to the other side. So I'm going to flip this over so that the scroll or the coil is away from me, and then I'm going to roll the second half of that strip towards me. And again, you can decide too how much of a strip you want in between the two sections of your scroll. I'm going to have a little bit of a gap there because I want mine to not be too tight. But I am, as with the other coils, I'm going to hold it in place for a moment, so that way it does give a chance, give the opportunity for the glue to set, and then let it open up and uncoil itself. And now I have these two little coils, and so that can be another decoration that I can add into my design. Now that you know how to make the basic shapes, go out and use your quills to make some beautiful designs. Here you can see I made 2 greeting cards. All right, go have fun quilling. Bye.